I'm Ashley Smith. I'm the news editor of Namibian Sun. And we have with us in the studio today the editor of Namibian Sun, Toivo Njabela. Toivo, how are you today?
Good evening, my brother.
It's been a fast news day, but we'll get through it.
It always is. These days it's unbelievable how exciting it is to be in this industry because there's so much happening.
But let's take a look back at today's front page. Major controversy around our former education minister, Katrina Hanse Marwa. What's happening there?
Yeah, so basically, as you would know, there's this big storm now about why she was appointed to a committee, a parliamentary standing committee on legal and constitutional affairs, which we now understand that she was given a buffet of choices of which committee to serve on, and she chose that one specifically. And people find it very outrageous in light of, or in the context of her conviction last year. And she's daring her detractors to remove her first from parliament if they want to deny her the right to serve in these committees. Of course, what is happening now is that she is in law, she's very much allowed to serve on these committees. And I don't think anybody is arguing against that. From the legal point of view, I think it's from the moral point of view to say, fresh from the conviction of this case, how do you just serve of all committees, the one on legal and constitutional affairs, when you've been convicted of having, as a matter of fact, having violated the spirit of the constitution and the legal requirements of the country, basically.
Yeah, obviously that controversy hasn't blown over yet, so we'll see how that develops in the rest of the week.
Yes.
Also on your front page today, Toivo, a story on the acting Ministry of Fisheries, Mr. Albert Kawana, basically making it very clear that Fisco, which is obviously embroiled in the Fishrot scandal, bribery scandal, that the Public Enterprises Ministry is actually supposed to carry that baby forward.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a bit about that story?
Yeah. So the background of it, last week Friday we sent our reporter Ohone to go and speak to Minister Kawana, and the spirit of the interview was to say we wanted to find out whether there were any plans to how are they dealing? How is government dealing as the shareholder? Dealing with the aspect of the board of directors of Fisco to say, yes, the board spoke to us last week. As you remember, we had the story last week where the board said, oh, we didn't know about this whole thing. Some are saying, oh, when I came on the board, some of these things have already happened. So we are saying now, because in terms of the fiduciary responsibilities, that somehow you can't remove the board from obligation. Yeah. Even if there are no criminal implications for them, there ought to be some accountability implications to say what happened, even if you didn't know, somehow morally you cannot continue to serve on this board. So many millions of taxpayers' money have been shipped out of the company under your supposed watchful eye, and that didn't happen. So that was the spirit of the conversation. So the minister then went on to say, look, there's a new act now around the governance of public enterprises, which has been implemented now, and all commercial public enterprises now fall under the Ministry of Public Enterprises, and no longer, like in this case, Fisco now, because it's a commercial entity, must report directly to the Ministry of Public Enterprises, which is the minister is correct totally. What we tried to do was to speak to the minister, Leon Yuste, of Public Enterprises, but we couldn't get hold of him. But we are very much keen to know what will happen in the coming days as far as the board is concerned. Yeah.
Just on that interview, we've got quite an extensive clip of that interview that Uhone Tlagi did.
Yes.
And we'd like the viewers to have a look at that.
On the issue, on the allocation of fishing quotas, how far is that process? Because there was a...
Yeah, no, that one we are waiting. Because as you know, really, we want the transparency. A to Z transparency. That one I can rest assured. So that's why this time around we decided to do a different, what we call procedure. As you might have heard, I went to the Cabinet Committee on Economics. I went to the full cabinet. I had the backing of my cabinet, my president, to say that let us be transparent. My president always says, transparency plus accountability equals trust. So what we have done now, as we announced already, it's not a secret, we assigned this function of processing these things to you now. And we are waiting, hopefully very soon, we'll get that. Once we get that one, we will go to the Cabinet Committee on Economics for a detailed, what we call, report that they will give us. From there, we go to full cabinet before we make a public statement, before the minister, in terms of the law, allocates those rights, allocates the quotas.
Okay.
But we are hoping that this process will be completed hopefully by end of March.
Next year now.
So, no, not next year.
This year.
Let's say end of March this year.
Okay.
But now then whoever will be in the office as a substantive minister, I don't know, you see my boss said some of the ministries will be merged, so I don't know whether this ministry will still be there or not, but should it be there and there's a substantive minister, I hope this process will be completed by March.
Okay, on the labor front, we know that many people have lost jobs as a result of this incident. What have the discussions been with the labor unions, and what concrete steps are being taken to ensure that those that have lost their jobs will be reinstated? Have you done an assessment to find out how many jobs were lost and where the job losses occurred?
You see, my brother, on that one, as I always also said, there was a cabinet decision. And the category of those who lost the jobs were identified by cabinet decision. And the directive from my own president to say those categories, we need to try as far as possible that our unfortunate citizens must find jobs, must have bread on their tables, because Harambe Prosperity Plan says nobody must feel left out, because the resources of this land belong to our people. And I am somehow happy, notwithstanding really what has happened in terms of natural resources. You see, Article 100 of the Constitution says the natural resources of Namibia belong to the state, and therefore these resources must benefit the nation, the Namibian nation. And I can tell you, compared to other sectors such as mining, the fisheries sector is more than 90%, more than 90% owned by Namibians. So that, to me, is a very proud record. Let us keep it that way, because I know there might be some interests who are saying, because of the Fishrot as is being said now, it's our chance now to grab this thing from the hands of Namibians. That will never happen as long as we are in government. We want even to see more Namibians own these resources, more Namibians. That's why the president said there must be regional fish quotas, so that all 14 regions must benefit from this resource. Now, with regard to your specific question, I have gone to the coast. I went to Walvis Bay, inclusive of SWAPO and the Hentis Bay, to engage stakeholders, including the unions.
Yes.
I went to Lüderitz, I engaged the stakeholders, including the unions. I went last year to Walvis Bay. In fact, it was twice. Last year, Walvis Bay. This year, I went again to consult the unions and the other stakeholders. I'm about now, only that you know, I'm busy now with this Supreme Court challenge. But once this is behind me, I'll still have to go to Lüderitz also to consult further. So this issue is receiving my utmost attention, so much so that I want to make sure that my fellow citizens, my fellow comrades, they have bread on their table.
But I'm speaking now.
And I'm happy to say that really, in terms of industry, they are coming forth, but it's something that we have to process, to engage also the trade unions, to engage all the stakeholders. I have to go to cabinet to report, and certain authorizations must be forthcoming from cabinet. Once cabinet says I must go ahead, then you will see these people being employed. That's number one. Number two, for your information, last year when I went to the coast, I found the 24 employees or workers who were dismissed. So this time, when I went back, because there was a representation to me, you see, this time when I went back, I engaged all stakeholders, and I'm happy to report to you that as I'm talking to you now, those 24 workers, they are back on employment. Because I worked together with the union leadership, particularly Nassau, the leadership of Nassau. I want to thank them. Also the company, I want to thank them, because those 24 workers or employees who were dismissed, currently now, all of them are back in employment. But these ones, now you see there's Namsov. You remember Namsov employees will be my top priorities. I want to make sure my comrades must go back to work. At least those who are qualified, you see, because sometimes you know you have a retirement age, isn't it?
Yes.
There might be some who have maybe reached retirement age. We see what we can do to them. But those who are still able to work, that will be my top priority, together with my comrades in the ministry, as per the directive of my president, as per the directive of my cabinet. Then there was these other workers who were dismissed as a result of strike. I will also try my utmost best, because as I'm saying now, I'm constantly engaging the stakeholders, meaning now the unions, the workers' representatives, the industry, to see how we can accommodate them.
Okay.
So that one, definitely we are working on it.
Minister, it's fine to say that you're engaging, but there's a person that used to be employed, that is unemployed, that needs to pay school fees, that needs to buy food. That person wants to know from your side what is being done, what practical steps are being taken, what are the timelines that we are looking at, because it's no use to them telling them that you are constantly engaging without any end result, to be fair.
No, I think you are not fair to me. Definitely you are not.
Also, Minister.
Yeah, and you are not also listening to what I'm telling you. I have engaged everybody.
Okay.
You understand?
I understand.
Unions, yes, industry. Now, I have to process this thing to go back to cabinet, because mind you, it was a cabinet decision. You understand?
Yes.
So I cannot announce to you before I go to cabinet. That's not according to the procedure of cabinet. But if you ask those colleagues in the industry, they will tell you. In January, I engaged everybody at the coast. The only now, for the second time, I have to go back to Lüderitz. That's the only place left. But otherwise, as you know, last year I went to Walvis Bay, I went to Lüderitz. This year I went to Walvis Bay, I went to Hentis Bay. Now I have to go to Lüderitz. After that, I make a final report, cabinet. Once cabinet say, go ahead, you will see now people getting employed. But also one thing, which I want to tell you, and I keep repeating what the president says. Transparency plus accountability equals trust. Before, you see, it's not for me to say, you, go to that company, you, go to, no. What we want first is to publish, publicly, to publish the name. Say, okay, Namsov group, that will be group A of the list. We publish. Then we say, because now there are, allegations, office of the governor, they are manipulating the list, or this trade union comrades, they are manipulating the list. So to me, I'm not worried about that, because that list will be published in the print media. I hope you will give me a better quotation so that I publish those names and then invite those who are concerned, stakeholders, to say, verify this list. If there's somebody on this list who was not supposed to be on this list, let us know. If there's somebody who is left out, who qualifies to be on this list, let us know. We want to do these things transparently. After that, then we will say to those companies which will be successful, this is the list, pick. Because we know that this company say, we are willing to employ X number. This one will say X number, this one will say X number. So the very first, what we call list, Namsov, because that's the first priority, we give. Once that list is completed, then we come to the second list. Then after that, as I was told, there are also those others who do not fall within the first two categories. Then we see also, we still negotiate with the industry how to employ our fellow Namibians.
That's all we have time for this evening. Thank you for joining us on the Evening Review. And of course, look out for our bumper edition of Namibian Sun tomorrow morning on the shelves.